to my channel. Today I am doing a video on my 5 tips to help get started with using positive reinforcement training with your horse. So if you don't know, I've been using positive reinforcement training with my mare Ruby for the last year and a bit. I thought today's video I thought I would just do a kind of quick fire 5 tips to get started with positive reinforcement. If you've heard about positive reinforcement training and you want to start incorporating that kind of training with your horse, it's really great for relationship building, confidence building, enrichment, mental stimulation. It can be great if your horse is on box rest or your horse is currently out of work. Like it's a very enriching thing to do with them, if they're not in a position where they can get out and be horses. Yes, there's just many benefits of positive reinforcement training and incorporating it into your routine with your horse. So I'll just get started. So the first tip I have is get the basics right, and what I mean by this is ensure that you have your anti-mugging training down to a T before you move on to anything else. So when you first start using positive reinforcement training with your horse, so just like to summarise, positive reinforcement is typically when you add something in response to a desired behaviour that you've asked for. So typically most common is probably food, treats, but could be praise, or I don't know, like I know with dogs you could give them a toy, their favourite toy, or but it's the addition of something that is desirable to the animal in response to a desired behaviour. So for the purposes of this video I'm just going to assume that we're going to be using treats. So when you're beginning to do positive reinforcement training with your horse, you will typically have a bum bag or a treat pouch full of food, and many different types of food rewards. I might do another video on what I use and what other like what you can use as a food reward. So if you haven't been doing this kind of work with your horse, typically they will start to mug you, and yeah, this is where you kind of have to set up the sort of anti-mugging. You have to start the anti-mugging training for the first being the anti-mugging training should be the first thing that you teach your horse. So basically you'll have your bum bag, your horse will realise treats are coming from that bum bag and they will try to mug you. They may start like kind of being pushy or trying to mouth you or trying to, you know, get towards the bum bag. And typically you'll see this with people that, you know, I know a lot of people at like my yard for instance would be the kind of people that wouldn't necessarily say they use positive reinforcement training but will give their horses a treat occasionally, and sometimes you'll see if the horse thinks that they have treats on them, they'll start mugging, and then oftentimes people will actually in response to this give the horse a treat. So in essence they're after training that horse to continue that behaviour. But obviously if you want to kind of build up on a positive reinforcement and train many different behaviours, the mugging thing is just going to be a problem, so that needs to be nipped in the bud straight away. So basically your horse will kind of try and mouth you or try and get towards the bum bag. Just keep turning away or ignoring the behaviour, and obviously if they get like kind of, if they're really like kind of on top of you, you know, turn away. Maybe gently push them away if they are kind of really coming into your space. But as soon as they move their head away of their own accord, that's click and reward straight away. So then it becomes clear to them after a while that, oh, you know, when I mug, when I try and like grope or grapple at my owner to get the treat, that doesn't work, but when I look away, that does work. And then eventually that kind of head away position just becomes sort of the neutral kind of positions, like nearly like the car is in neutral and now we can, you know, give it a command and it can do X, Y and Z. So yeah, that is the first thing, and I wouldn't move on to any other behaviour until you have that down, because otherwise it's just going to be a waste of time. You're not going to get anything from it. So once, like Ruby very rarely tries to kind of push into me or try and like reach for the bum bag. Usually if she is going to be kind of like on top of me or whatever, it's usually because she wants scratches or something. It's never because she's trying to get a treat, because she just knows it won't work. I've never given that mare a treat for coming into my space and, you know, pushing me and stuff. And it's not like, when horses are coming into your space and they are trying to get a treat, it's not them being rude. It's because they are foragers and they are looking for food. That's their biology, and they are, you know, they think they're going to trial this method to try and get food. It's nothing to do with they're being rude to you or they're not respecting you or they're trying to be dominant. It's just biology, and they're foragers and they're trying to look for snacks. And we, as their owners and their trainers, just need to kind of redirect them and show them that the way they get their snacks is not by coming on top of the small little human, and instead it is by kind of turning their head away or kind of having a neutral head position. So that's the first tip, and that's probably the most important one, so I'm just going to put most important one first. Second one would be to have, this is something that I like, I know not everyone does this, but this is something I find very useful, is I have a bum bag that has multiple pouches on it. And the reason I have this is because I just find it handy if I am doing a big positive reinforcement session to have my treats or my food or whatever split up into ones that are higher value and then ones that are kind of lower value. So typically as a behaviour becomes more and more established, and I just say I'm asking for something, like I remember Ruby can do these kind of Spanish steps. Kind of, we haven't quite got the walk bit, but she's sort of does the Spanish steps. And I remember when I was training them at the start, I would give her a really high value reward anytime she kind of made an effort to lift her leg. I would give her like a stud muffin, which she really loves, or an apple or a carrot. Now she does them and I just kind of give her a handful of grass pellets because it's an established behaviour. I'm not gonna give her like really sugary high value treats every time she does it now, because she knows it. When I'm teaching her something new and something that's a bit harder for her to get, for instance, I went through a phase in the summer where I was trying to teach her bow, and I would give her a stud muffin when she kind of got into the sort of bow position. We never fully got it, but I think that's because she kind of got like, I think, stiffness in her body. She's not really a spring chicken, but and I didn't want to keep pushing her just in case there was sort of a reason why. So having said that, she would offer it herself. She would offer her version of a bow because she knew she was going to get a high value reward for it. So I would have a bum bag that has multiple compartments that you can organise in advance. Don't be trying to kind of organise it while you're there in the middle of the session with your horse. Have it ready to go. Have you like whatever your treat of choice is, whatever your horse loves. You know, a few high value rewards and then some lower value, which could be some chaff or it could be some grass pellets. I'm using grass pellets at the moment, which are actually really handy because they're not messy. The chaff I kind of find can be a bit messy, although I do use it. And yeah, so just have a bum bag that can be split out into different that can contain different rewards.
Okay, I just thought I'd show you here what I use as my kind of bum bag. Please excuse the state of it. It probably does need a clean, as most of my tack and horsey stuff at the moment does. But yeah, just as you can see, it has like multiple pouches on it. So yeah, like I have chaff in that pouch, and then like I might have pellets in here, and then smaller pouches I might have stud muffin or apple. Usually I put my phone in there actually because it's just handy. And yeah, like it's just nice when you have different pouches so you can separate out the food rewards based on value, and then, you know, treat each behaviour appropriately with the appropriate treat depending on the difficulty. So yeah, I just got this on Amazon. It was really cheap. It's like, okay, like it's definitely not purpose made to be used as a kind of treat pouch, but I think it works really well. I really like having different compartments. Again, other people seem to just get on fine with one pouch, but I have to say I do like this, and I often do ride with it anyway, even when I'm not doing more plus, just because again it's handy to keep your phone and keys in there. So yeah, and it doesn't look the worst either. I think it's leather, it just wipes clean.
So my third tip is to reward often. So I think kind of when you're used to training horses, coming from the perspective of negative reinforcement, you kind of nearly expect them to do like a whole series of behaviours before they get the reward. So I know like if you're kind of trying to train a dressage test or whatever, it's nearly like you're asking the horse to do this whole dressage test, which is maybe like 10 minutes of kind of riding up in a contact, performing these movements, which is all well and good, and then it's only at the end of that test where they get the reward, which is kind of the release. You give them a loose rein and let them rest. With positive reinforcement, they will get very frustrated very quickly because their motivation is that much higher to get the reward. They get frustrated very quickly if you don't reward often. So, or typically you'll kind of, I think a lot of people expect too much and they don't reward the little increments, which are kind of, and it's those little steps that eventually get the big behaviour that you want. So like if you're trying to teach your horse to lift its leg and you are, giving them the cue, which is slight tap with the whip on their leg, not increasing the pressure, just a tap with the whip, and you're saying up, and your horse shifts its weight onto that leg or shifts its weight off its leg, or like moves it even slightly, you click and reward straight away. And like it's all those little steps, and then the next time you kind of just wait for a little bit more of a movement before you give the click and reward. So I think it's just reward often, because I know like sometimes people can just expect too much, I think. And I think the key to keeping your horses keen and engaged is to just reward often, and your horse will be like, oh yeah, because it feels good for your horses when like they get that click. The kind of nature of it is that little dopamine hit when you do that click, and the more they get that, the more they're going to be like, okay, I want to engage, and I want to try and figure out what exactly she wants me to do. So that would be my third tip. My fourth tip would be to train with balance in mind, and what I mean by that is if, as I just was saying in my last tip, you're rewarding often because that keeps your horse engaged, it keeps them willing, they want to learn. But with that being said, ensure that you are balancing kind of the more exuberant behaviours with quiet, relaxed behaviours. So because I know, like for instance, when I was trying to teach Ruby to her steps, her Spanish walk steps, I was like rewarding it so often, and like really like every single time I'd go up to her I'd be like, oh, do step, and eventually it just got to the point where I wouldn't even ask for it and she would just do it, and she would do it all the time, and then she was getting frustrated, and I'd never reward her for doing it when I didn't ask, because I don't want her to ever be doing behaviours without me cueing them. I always want her to do the behaviours in response to a cue from me, so I'm never going to treat her for doing it off cue. However, I don't want her even beginning to do them off cue was because I had like kind of been like, every time I'd been around her I'd been like, let's go, we'll do this, and really there needs to be a balance between we're doing this kind of faster movement or this kind of more exuberant movement and rewarding kind of a calm behaviour like standing still or wowing and like staying, basically parking your horse, or just kind of a calm behaviour, or walking quietly beside you. So basically kind of more in any given session, really there needs to be balance. So you need to balance out the fast-paced movements with calmer movements, so your horse understands that it will be rewarded for both and doesn't think that they have to always be up here or else they're not going to get treats, that they can get treats for being calm and level-headed as well, because yeah, you just need to create balance basically. Number 5 is to be consistent in your marker signals. So a lot of people use, like I started off using the kind of mechanical clicker. I don't actually have one to hand. I'll insert a little clip. But but like the mechanical clicker, which has a very distinct kind of sound that can't be mixed up with anything else. The only thing is I found it very annoying to have to remember that the whole time, because they're so small, and I'd like put them on my wrist and I'd take them off, and like they would just always get lost on me. So I have kind of switched to using that kind of tongue click sound, which is horribly annoying, but it's like that kind of sound. And yeah, it is. I've completely realised that I sound so annoying going around the yard. But I just find it so handy because I don't need to remember anything. And again, it is distinct sound. It's not the same as the kind of, which I would often use to kind of indicate to go faster, or if I'm lunging her, so it is distinct from that. So yeah, make sure your marker signal is distinct, clear, won't be kind of used in, like if you're going to use a word, I know some people do use words, I've never used words so I can't really advise on it, but I know some people go yes, or okay, or good, or whatever their word is. But just the only problem I think you'll come across with that is you're always gonna like there's a risk that it'll just come up in everyday language and your horse might get confused then, because it's amazing how much they do listen. Like oftentimes I will be I might record something, I might record myself training with Ruby, then I might be playing it back on my phone and she might be eating her feed and she'll hear the click and straight away her head will go up and she'll be looking around like, oh, where did that come from? So it is amazing. Like once you start incorporating positive reinforcement training with your horse, you will be amazed at how much attention they pay to you and how motivated they are to work with you, and just how much your relationship improves. It's brilliant. Like it is a great way to train. It's a nice way, and yeah, it makes it enjoyable for both parties. So yeah, there are my 5 tips on incorporating positive reinforcement, or starting to incorporate positive reinforcement with your horse. And I know there are a lot of people out there that are just like pure hardcore positive reinforcement, and I'm not like that myself. Ruby was trained traditionally, and a lot of her training I don't really have any issues with. There's just some behaviours that I wanted to teach that she didn't know already, so I decided to use positive reinforcement methods. And yeah, basically where there was problems in her training or gaps in her prior training, I'll kind of fill them in using positive reinforcement methods as opposed to negative reinforcement methods. But I wouldn't kind of let the feeling that you need to just completely use only positive reinforcement training with your horse kind of put you off trying it, because everyone can incorporate positive reinforcement training regardless of what discipline you do, or what way you usually train, or what others at your yard are doing. Everyone can incorporate it, and I think it just does really benefit the horses and engage them, especially in scenarios where they're stabled a lot, and any form of extra enrichment is a huge benefit to them. So yeah, I know I was trying to wrap it up like 2 minutes ago, but I'm going to wrap it up again. So yeah, let me know if you have any kind of questions or any tips of yourself, any tips of your own below, or if you tried any of these, let me know how it goes, and I will chat to you in my next one. Bye!